Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome to the final episode of the Islam for You podcasts on season one regarding the finances. I'm honored to join by Sayyid Abdullah. Thank you for joining us once again.
Assalamu alaikum, and thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
So today we're going to wrap it up on finances, and
Yeah.
this session is going to be dedicated to questions brought up by our viewers and others who read our blog. So today is going to be all about the probably reviewing some of the things that we mentioned in the previous episodes, some unexplored sides of the topics, or some new things that are related to the finances in Islam. So I'm going to start with zakat as something that we could talk about it, obviously, but we didn't have the time, so we just missed it. But there were some questions that people asked us. I'm going to read the first one. I'm sorry if I just might look at my phone.
No, that's fine.
The first question is that how can Muslims calculate their zakat obligation accurately, especially with complex assets like stocks and cryptocurrencies?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I think there's a confusion between zakat and khums. And even zakat itself, between the two different schools of thought, between the Shia Ahlul Bayt school of thought and between the Sunni Khulafa school of thought, they differ in terms of zakat, right? So for the school of thought of the Ahlul Bayt alayhum salam, zakat falls into only 9 items: gold and silver, cows, sheep and camels, and then we have what we call al-ghalat al-arba'a. So we have wheat, we have raisin, we have dates, and we have rice or barley. See, these are the 9 items that if you have them, then you pay your zakat after a year. And each one of these items, it has a specific amount. So, for example, gold 2.5, and depends on how much gold you have, depending on how much silver you have. Same thing with sheep and camels. Depends on, like, if you have 5, the zakat is like this. If you have 10, it's like that. And same thing with the barley, raisin, and wheat. So each one of them have a specific scales, which is not a topic for today. So if you're a farmer, for example, and you have either that, or if you're a person who is a jeweler who deals with gold and silver, then obviously you need to go read the calculation in this regard. And obviously there's only a small amount of people who actually either farmers or either have livestock or jewelers. So it's a very, very limited people. Now we have what we call khums, right, which is fifth. That's where the name comes from, fifth. Between the school of thought of the Ahlul Bayt alayhum salam, we have khums, and khums is compulsory as much as zakat. Any wealth of over a year that you do not use is not considered part of your expenditure for the whole year, then you have to pay 1/5 of it, or 20% of it. All right. The school of thought of the Ahlus Sunnati wal Jama'ah, they do not believe in khums. Khums does not exist for them, even though it is in the Quran, even though it is in the Hadith, but that's a different story for another day. So with khums, for example, if I was dealing with trades like cryptocurrency or any other stocks, and obviously it is more than what I require for my survival for a whole year, then I have to pay my khums on it, which is 20% of whatever is left over of a whole year expenditure. That's how khums is calculated. So like I said, depends on which school of thought that you follow, and whether you believe in khums or not, then you do. Also, it's good to highlight that with the Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, in their ideology, or in their teachings, I should say, is that zakah also falls into their money as well. So, for example, if you have loans, if you have, I don't know, stocks, if you have whatever, you have to pay your zakat as well. Unlike the school of thought of the Ahl Bayt, where everything is divided, they don't have that.
How much is that zakat?
For them, it's different. It depends on what you have. There's a percentage that you calculate, and even now, if you go online, they have what they call zakat calculator. You type in the amount of money that you have, and it will give you the percentage that you have to do. So they have their own calculation in this regard as well.
Okay, thank you very much. The next question here is that again about zakat, is that what are the most effective and impactful ways to distribute zakat?
So zakat itself is meant to be given to the poor, those who are needy. So again, this is a matter of faith, at least school of thought. With the Ahl Bayt alayhim salam, when it comes to zakat goes to the poor people and the needy. Where khums itself, khums get divided into 2 or 3 parts, and also that's another story for another day. But generally speaking, the khums and zakat is supposed to be given to those who are in need. And also we have 2 concepts. We have what we call faqir and we have what we call miskin, right? So one that has amount of money to survive for a whole year, we call him miskin. Faqir is the one that does not have anything at all, like, even for his daily expenditure. So what we're supposed to do is that we're supposed to divide that money first and foremost on the poor people, and also we begin with the al-aqrabun awla bil ma'ruf. We begin with those who are close of kin. So if you have family members who are, or close families who are poor, you're meant to give them your zakat and your khums, and then you make your way out. And now in a lot of countries, usually khums and zakat is given to the scholars or to the muassasat, to the institutions that deal with this, and they take that and they divide it among the poor, among the needy, among the sick, and what have you.
Thank you very much. The next topic is my favorite one, halal investing.
Okay.
And I miss talking about that, so I want to ask a few questions in that regard as well. One of the questions is that how can I invest ethically in the stock market, real estate, or other asset classes?
Well, we discussed the fintech in this regard. There are plenty of applications and sites and what have you that you can go and invest. But the idea is you just have to make sure that you invest in something that is allowed, that is halal. That's the key. So find a company, for example, or a stock or real estate that is halal for you to invest in, and then go for it. So just keep the criteria that it has to be halal, it has to be something that pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not something that pleases yourself, because especially in that path, you might come across really nice, juicy deals. And sometimes your brain shuts down in terms of fear of Allah, and then you just go for it. So always make sure that if you want to invest or buy stocks or buy land or whatever, make sure it's done for the purpose of pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're not going to do anything haram.
Thank you very much. The next question is a bit interesting in terms of the different POV, point of view, that this viewer had. It says that what are the challenges and opportunities in the growing field of Islamic finance? It requires your own opinion, I guess.
So Islamic finances, basically what Islam does, Islam comes to you. So finances are finances, right? What do you do yourself to make money? We call it finance, right? Anything that deals with money is considered to be finance. Islam comes along and Islam tries to, doesn't teach you how to make money per se. Islam doesn't tell you where are the places to make money in per se. I mean, yeah, it does encourages, for example, tijara, does encourages like business and deals. It's just to go buy items and sell items. This is encouraged in Islam, encouraged in the Quran. But at the end of the day, you make your own finances in whatever means and ways you can. But Islam comes and says to you, okay, I'm going to have my say in that venture that you want to go into. So if you want to become an entrepreneur, for example, Islam says, well, I'm going to tell you which is halal, which is haram. The rest is yours. So Islam just basically gives you the formula that this kind of transaction is haram, that you should not deal with, and this transaction is halal, that you should deal with. So this is how Islam comes in. So finances itself, it's especially from a Western perspective, is a very wide concept. There's a lot falls into finance. It's even a degree that you study in a university. So it's not limited to one thing. Again, when we bring Islam to the formula, we just have to see what is halal or what is haram. That's as simple as I could make it.
Can I add something to this?
Sure.
One thing that was really interesting for me during these episodes that we had together was the fact that, contrary to what we learned by the people that you were emphasizing on, teaching us in the wrong way, we have certain ways taught by our Ahlul Bayt how to invest, how to be rich, how to distribute your money. You even talked about in one of the episodes that they had their own storages in order to keep the city away from the famine and the crisis. So we have things, and you even mentioned the fact that we have some stuff mentioned by Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. These are the things that you should do. I think the advancement of technology can help us bring those teachings to the real life.
Definitely. See,
as well as trying to just give a proper manifest of what Islam wants from us.
Absolutely. So like you said, so the Ahlul Bayt, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Quran, they emphasize on you as a Muslim to go and make money, generate money. It's one of the powers that you possess. You're going to possess one of the elements that you can defeat your enemy with, one of the beauties of life itself. So there's a lot of emphasis on making money and having wealth. So Islam emphasizes on that. Now, what seems to happen is that the ways of making money is a lot easier now. So back in the day, it would be just trades, you know what I mean? And manual labor. Now, me and you and a lot of Muslims around the world, we can just sit behind a PC, behind a screen, and we can generate lots of money if you put your mind into it. And when I say money, I don't mean just go invest, for example, or go into stock markets. No, you can, for example, you can create applications. You can, you can provide services that don't require you to be present, that don't require you to do manual handling. You can just do online services, digital services, and you can make a lot of money. As easy as even opening a YouTube channel these days. If it's successful, you'll make a lot of money. So the ways of making money now for the Muslims, it's really vast. You can go into drop shipping, for example, business. You can go into import-export business while you're sitting behind a screen. So if you take the Islamic teachings, which emphasizes on you doing work, and you apply that with what you have, the resources and the tools available for you online, the sky's the limit.
Thank you very much. I have this personal question. Is it me, or it is genuinely a thing that we Muslims do not have that type of community in which we support each other in the markets? Like the cryptocurrency, when you mentioned it, it was like this group of people come together and they believe in something. They add value to it. They have others join. But I think this is how I see it. Maybe I'm wrong. We as Muslims never had this big community. We're really big. We're more than how many? 2-3 billion. Yes.
Almost 2 billion.
Almost 2 billion. But we never had this backing of each other, like the other ethnic groups and races might have. But we never had that. Is that true? if it is true, how can we solve that?
Sadly, the Muslims are divided. And sadly, the Muslims do not help each other. And sadly, the Muslims, they want to rip each other apart. This is the sad reality. What you said is 100% spot on. See, if you look at the Jewish community, for example, they support each other financially. Exactly. They help each other, and that's why the whole bank system is governed and owned by the Jews. The entire bank system of the entire world owned by the Jews. They own everything in terms of finances. Other groups that I've dealt with, for example, I don't want to name names, but when they come to a new country, they support each other financially. For example, I remember in Melbourne, we have a specific group of people, I don't want to name their names, but when someone new comes, they help him out, they give him financial support, they even open a shop for him, and then he repays it after that. So they help each other to grow. They support each other to grow. And this is exactly what Islam wanted. Islam wanted us as Muslims to be sufficient, that we don't need anyone else, that we have our own system. And there is no lands in the world that's more richer than the Islamic world. Now the energy of the entire world comes from the Islamic lands, whether it's from the Gulf areas, whether it comes from Iran, whether it comes from Iraq, whether it comes from these surrounding countries. 90% of the world of the country, the oil of the world is in our hands. And that generates billions and billions of dollars on a yearly basis. Where does that go? If we had control and power of our own money, we would not have one single poor Muslim on the face of this planet. We would be the richest human beings ever, right? But because we're so divided, because we are so greedy, because we only care about ourselves, that I don't help you, don't help me. And sometimes I don't even help you on a personal level when I know that you're in need and you don't have much, and I know I have. I'm like, it's not my problem. I only think about what the West taught us. They taught us that only think about number one, which is yourself. Don't think about others. This is a selfish look to life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa and the Ahlul Bayt, they believed in this sharing system. And we have a beautiful hadith from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. He said, and he describes what a good brother is. Like, how do you find a good believing brother? When I mean when I say brother, I don't mean like someone from the same mother and father, but like in brother in faith. He says, if you have someone that you can put your hand in his wallet, or when he in his pocket, you take his wallet, you take money out of it, you put the wallet back, and he does not say a word, that's a brother. You know? And I'm saying, how many of these people do we have?
Wow.
Sometimes if I want to go ask my own brother from my own blood and flesh blood, and I say, bro, I need $1,000. Like, why? What for, bro? What are you gonna do with it? When are you gonna give it back to me? We put these obstacles when even our blood brothers, yet alone believing brothers, where Islam says, this should not exist. And one of the people that left a comment in one of the previous episodes that we said, if we don't buy loans from the bank, how are we gonna survive? How are we gonna get loans? Well, that's the idea. The rich Muslims were meant to help those who are not rich. So even back in the day, during the Prophet's time and the Ahlul Bayt's time, the Muslims, they had the treasury. And the treasury was where people give their zakah, people give their khums, and that was divided amongst the poor people. Now, during the first 3 Khulafa, we had a lot of issues. And I'm not going to go there because it's problematic. But at least one thing we can all agree on historically with the Shia or Sunnah is the time of Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam. When he was a governor, when he was the Khalifa for 4 years and 6 months, he would divide the treasury of the Islamic treasury so equally on people that during his reign, during his power and his Khilafah, there was not a single poor man on earth. Well, at least in the Muslim land, I should say. We're not talking about, but during the Muslim land. Even he said, I wonder, there could be someone in Tuhama or in Yemen that maybe doesn't have, doesn't understand, or he doesn't know how it feels to be full. That's how much he was concerned. But he divided so equally that there were no poor people at his time. That even, he said, okay, we have enough money in the Islamic treasury. He started even getting people married, paying for the dowries and paying for whatever. If the amount is divided equally amongst people, then we shouldn't have a problem. If the wealth of the Muslims divided
not equally,
no, when I mean equally, I don't mean giving each person the same portion,
yes.
but I'm saying it gets divided amongst people.
Like just.
Yeah, just. So if that's get done, then we shouldn't have poor people. So the Muslims themselves, if I help you, if you help me, then we shouldn't have a problem. If I'm smart, if I'm good at a business, for example, and I help you to start a small business, then you succeed, I succeed. And you can do the same thing to other people, we all succeed. But because we have this stupid, selfish mentality that I only care about myself and I don't care about others, we are falling into this trap. And the Western civilization and the enemies of Islam, they thrive on that. They taught us how to be selfish. They taught us how to, break each other. Sometimes even, which is something really stupid, that sometimes when I see you succeed, I become jealous and envious of you. Why is he succeeding? And then I pray to Allah, even sometimes unintentionally, that you lose everything. And when I see you succeeding, I accuse you. If you have a beautiful, nice, fancy car, if you have, for example, a Bugatti, I'm like, he's doing drugs. If you have a fancy house, he's stealing. So because I have this sickness in my heart that I don't want to see you succeed. And Muslims, we have this, sadly.
Yeah,
and this goes against every teaching that we have in the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. That if you see someone in need, help them. If someone needs a loan them. So sometimes if I need a bit of money, instead of me getting a credit card, something that you maybe can help me with, $1,000 I take from you, I go buy a washing machine or a fridge that I'm in need of, which I can pay you off in a year or 2 years. Because we have a bond, a faith, that bonds us together. And then I don't have to commit haram. But when I know that it's so hard for me to ask you for a dime, and I'm going to put my face value in your hand, it's going to be really hard. So I'm not going to ask you. I'm going to go and do something with riba and get haram. So this is the problem that we have as Muslims. Now, even at the time of the Ahl Bayt alayhim salam, the Ahl Bayt were known for their generosity. They would give people. Either they give from their own, or either people come and ask them. And they give. And when the Ahl Bayt alayhim salam give, they don't give you a loan. They expect you to give back. They give you, it's for you for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because they're expecting a return of it in the day of judgment. Because even Allah says, Man yaqrad Allah qardan hasana, who would give Allah a loan? So when you loan me, you're actually loaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Says, I will pay you later tenfold. So a man came to Amir al-Mu'mineen and he said, what do you want? And he said, I need some help, I need some cash. And Amir al-Mu'mineen, he went and he got the cash and he put it from the outside the door without having to see the man's face. And the man said, well, are you trying to disrespect me? He's like, no, I just don't want to see the shame on your face that you're taking money from me. You know what I mean? To that extent, they used to help them in a way where they don't want to make the other party feel bad about it. So again, this is like a really sad topic to discuss. Yes. Is that how that we do not help each other, we do not support each other, even though some of us have so much wealth that it's even insane. Some of the wealthiest people on earth are actually Muslims. But what do they do with their wealth? They just keep adding it to their bank accounts, and when they die, it goes to someone else. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment, He says these people lived like poor people because they never spend their wealth. And on the day of judgment, they will be questioned as rich people. Why would you do this to yourself? So if we actually start to adopt this mentality where we start to help each other, we start to loan each other, we start to care about one another, the situation will differ. Because even the hadith says, "Irhamu man fil ardi yarhamkum man fis sama." Have mercy on those who are on earth. Allah will have mercy on you. So sometimes we say, why is our situation getting worse and worse by the day? Because as Muslims, we don't have mercy towards one another, sadly. Until we do, nothing's going to change. So Allah will not change a group of people until they change themselves. So this is a call to all the Muslims out there. If you have money, if you have a skill, if you can help someone else, by all means, take their hands and walk them through it. And you'll find the reward on the day of judgment, because now, at the end of the day, me and you, no one is going to live forever. We're going to die. And the best investment that you could make is the investment of the akhirah, not the investment of this world.
Thank you very much. That was touching. Thank you very much. So the next topic is about digital currencies and fintech. We talked about the cryptocurrencies, but the question that I'm going to read now is about that as well. One of the dear viewers had asked this question that is it okay to use fintech solutions to address the financial needs of Muslim communities?
We definitely see with fintech, when we talk about financial technology, we as Muslims, we should be the first to use this kind of technology for our advances. Because when new technology comes, we should be the first to use it and utilize it for our strength, for our advancement. So, as like I said, the Muslim countries, we are not short of wealth. We're not short of entrepreneurs. We're not short of money, right? So back in the day, and even in some countries now, actually, that still exist in some Muslim countries, when they put their money under the mattress, as we say, a lot of people actually still doing that in this modern day. They don't trust that banking system. They don't trust anything that with digital finance, right? This is not the right way to go about it, obviously. So when these technologies come, we should be the first to use it, harness its power for our advancement. So because now when you compete with other countries, you have to compete with economy. Economy is more powerful than weapons these days. If you have a strong economy, people are in need of you. You're not in need of them. So if you look at the superpowers today, whether it's America, China, or Russia, their main war is an economy, not in the actual ships that they have in the sea. That does play a big role, but at the end of the day, they twist each other's arms in terms of economy, of how much I can make you in debt and how much you can make me in debt, and how much are you in need of me in terms of finances, and how much I'm in need of you in terms of finances. So as Muslims, we should be the first to use and harness any fintech that is available for us, obviously, as long as we do it for the sake of Allah, and we don't do it in the haram way.
Thank you very much. Another viewer brought up this nice challenge for you. You talked about mortgages in one of the episodes, and this viewer had asked, what are the halal options for purchasing a home, including alternatives for the common mortgages?
The only halal way for me and you to get a mortgage is to pay for it cash. Okay, that's up front, right? And I know this, like, especially if you live in a Western country, that's almost impossible because the houses are very expensive depending which country you're in. But at least it's safe to say there is no house under 500,000 at least in most of the Western countries. So that kind of amount of money, unless you're a businessman, unless you have a lot of money that you can afford to buy it cash, by all means. If you have a job that has higher salary, pays you a lot of salary, for example, if you're a doctor, engineer, or whatever, or entrepreneur, and you're making quite passive income, maybe after a year or two, you can just rent like any other human being, and then after a year or two, you save some money and you can buy yourself a house up front. So the only way basically is to buy it up front with cash, because any other way, if you go to the banks, is mortgage. There's no other way around it. Or you find a good believing Muslim brother who can loan you the money to buy a house, and then you pay it back to him, obviously without asking for an increase, because that would also be riba. Oh, maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I don't know, he puts money in your bank account one day and you can buy yourself a house. So the idea that whatever beside mortgage and interest, the sky is the limit, right? You just need to stay away from any transaction where you're given money. Now, whether it is the bank or not the bank, where someone gives you money and asks you for a return with an increase, because that's riba, even if it's your own brother. All right, that's a problem. But beside that,
everything is fine.
Everything is fine. Whether you buy it cash, whether someone gives you the money, someone gives you the house, Allahu Alam. God knows what other options there are.
Thank you very much. Another question has a different point of view. This viewer had raised this question, says that what are the rights and the responsibilities of me as the landlord in Islam?
Landlord in Islam, obviously, it's actually legally binding, as we say. So there's always a contract between the landlord and the person that rents the house, right? The tenant. So the landlord and the tenant, they themselves agree on the terms of how much you pay rent, and if there's an upfront payment, I don't know, damage payment, you pay a deposit on top of the rent. So these are discussed between the tenant and the landlord. But Islamically speaking, because sometimes people abuse that power, because you're a landlord, it doesn't mean you charge people much more than what is considered to be normal. So for example, if the rates for renting a house is $1,000 and you say, no, it's my house, I'm going to charge $5,000. It's true, it's your house, but you also meant, Islamically, you're meant to not exceed in the profits. If you exceed more than what the limit is or what's commonly known, then that is definitely haram money, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will question you about it, because you're not supposed to do that. Because it's your house, it doesn't mean that you say, oh, I can charge whatever I want. And I think we mentioned the story of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, where he gave his money for someone to invest. The guy came and he brought tenfold. And the Imam said, how is it possible that you made this? Like, oh, because it's a need, that there's a demand for this item. So we managed to hike up the price. And the Imam said, may Allah curse you on your money. I don't want to take it. Because this is the end of the day, you abusing people. And people, especially when people are under extreme circumstances and they're forced to rent from you, for example, and you push the prices, then obviously you're putting them in hardships. And this is something Islam does not agree with. So make sure that if you, as a landlord, you don't burden people. Yeah, take your profit at the end of the day, but as long as it is within the common known fees, not something that you come up with because you say, oh, it's my house.
Thank you very much. Another question is about crowdfunding. Is it halal to use crowdfunding platforms for investments in new ventures? Crowdfunding.
What's crowdfunding?
For example, I'm an entrepreneur. I need to buy this equipment, which needs a lot of money, and I'm out of cash. So I know that if I add this equipment to my production line, I can make 25% more profit. So I'm going to say that I get this money from people, but not in chunk. Like, anyone can contribute as much as they want. So each person will be rewarded with part of that share that I will make by the cause of purchasing that equipment. This is crowdfunding. Crowdfunding.
Crowdfunding. I thought you said crowdfunding.
No, crowdfunding.
Crowdfunding.
Yeah.
See, it's fine as long as the people that give you the money, they don't ask you for return. Like, so they don't say to you, look, I'm gonna give you $1,000.
Some of them guarantee the return of the actual money.
No, you mean the person himself. can guarantee. So, for example, I ask people to fund me, right?
I ask people to
And
come and fund me on a platform. The
Yeah.
platform gets a share, like 2-3%.
Yeah.
Also, I have to guarantee that I will return the money that was invested.
Yes.
So the money itself is guaranteed.
Yeah.
And I will say that I can make profit out of this, and I
Yeah.
will divide it into this,
Yeah.
and then I will announce like 4, 5, 6% interest in 1 year, in 6 months, in 9 months. This is how it works.
Yeah, so we call this mudaraba rather than anything else
Okay.
Islamically. So basically, people invest in your company.
So it's
I give
halal.
you, yeah, this is investment. So I invest in your company, and you guarantee me the profit. Now you could lose as well, but the loss is on you. I'm not responsible for your loss.
The fact that I am guaranteeing the actual money doesn't make it haram.
No, because this is see, it only becomes haram when I give you money and I say to you, you have to give me 25%. I put the condition. So if I put the condition, then this is riba. This is interest. But if you say to me now, look, I have a business, it will generate money, and I'm gonna give me like $1,000, and I will give you like 5 in return. Like, okay, by all means, here's my money. So it's different.
Another topic which is very interesting is the debt management. Someone asked, how can Muslims get out of the debt and avoid falling into a cycle of riba-based borrowing?
Well,
there are 2 questions.
Yeah,
I think we should avoid the second one and just.
Yeah, so basically make sure you don't take any loan that is riba.
That's the second question answer.
Yeah, so if you take a credit card, or you take a bank loan, a personal loan, or car loan, or home loan, or mortgage, and you know you can't pay it, or you don't have enough money to pay it, then you're putting yourself in this difficulty to begin with. So to begin with, do not approach that, because once you go there, it doesn't matter whether you're under debt or not, because you have already signed up for this contract. Now, when it comes to debt itself, if you borrow money from people, obviously you need to have a plan yourself of how you're going to repay it back. So before I ask you for money, I have to say to myself, do I have the means to give it back to them? How long is it going to take me to give it back to them? What are the means of me giving it back to them? Am I going to give it to them one go, and after a month, 2 months? Am I going to give it to them in installments? So you have to ask yourself and understand your own capacity, your own, should we say, your own will, right? So I need to figure out if I'm able to even pay it or not. And the other person also needs to know that. So because this is, we do this a lot, and we actually, as we say, we close the babul khair, we close the door of good. So sometimes a person asks me for a loan, I give it to them as a way to help them, and they never give it back. They don't tell me even when they're gonna give it back. And after a while, when I ask about it, they try to avoid me. I'm like, oh, tomorrow, next month, they push it. And when I find out that I'm not getting it back from this guy, which I trusted in the first place, mind you, that's why I gave it to him. If I did not trust, I wouldn't give it to them. Next time another person comes to me and asks me for a loan, I'll say no, because I had a really bad experience with one person. And this happens all the time.
And shouldn't be blamed on you.
No, it shouldn't be blamed on me, because someone else made me feel like this. Someone else, that bad experience that I had with them, it made me stop giving anyone.
So that person gets the bad reward.
That person cops it. So when it comes to debt, you have to make sure that you tell the people that you take the money from them, are you going to be able to pay it? How long it will take you? How are you going to pay it? And even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even the Quran, actually, He says, تَدَيَنْتُمْ بِدَيْنٍ فَاكْتُبُوا. You have to write it down. Write the conditions. Don't say, okay, give me $100 and I give you $100 and then there you go. And then it never comes back to me. I'm personally myself, I've given so much money to people that when I give people, I don't expect in return. I've given so much debt to people. They borrowed money from me, and they never mentioned it ever again. Even in a joking way. Oh, by the way, I still need to give you your money back. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if you want to take a loan from someone, or someone gives you something, make sure you write it down.
That's a very good advice. But I just have this question. Sometimes life has its own ups and downs, and
Yes.
sometimes you're facing that bottom side of it, and you just cannot get out of that trap of debts. You have avoided the haram, riba, and everything, but you're trapped in debt.
Yes.
Is there any way, like praying? Because when you're in debt,
yes,
you cannot function very well.
True.
So, is there any way, any recommendation, anything that we can do so we can avoid that situation better, sooner, or more efficient?
Definitely. Look, there are two aspects here. There's dua and there's amal, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He made the promise. Ud'uni astajib lakum. Pray to me and I will answer you. This is a promise from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never breaks His promises. So if you're under debt and you have debts and your financials are not in the best shape, and like you said, you are at the end of the stick, pray for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for help and for wealth. But at the same time, you have to do action, you have to do amal. So I can't just sit in my house, pray for Allah to give me money and help me pay my debt while I'm just sitting at home doing nothing.
But sometimes you feel every door is slammed into your face.
So if you feel like there's every door slammed in your face, then you're not trying hard enough. Because if you try, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always have a way, a door. But sometimes you just go into the wrong doors. Sometimes I think of things that for example, in order for me to get a job, I only look for a job that is a desk job. Maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, no, your rizq is not on a desk job, your rizq is somewhere else, right? Maybe you go somewhere else. I'll give you an example for myself, for example. When I started in the workplace, I started as washing dishes in a restaurant, right? And then I moved a stage higher, I started pushing trolleys in the supermarket. And then I moved higher, I started vacuuming in schools. Now, obviously, this is not the kind of jobs I would love to do. I would love to have another job. And even, mind you, I had a certificate back in the day in my field, but I could not find a job in that certificate. So I could have said, oh Allah, either you give me a job in my field or I'm not going to work. And I sit in my prayer mat all day praying to Allah to give me a job in my field. Allah says, no, it's not how you want it, it's how I want it. So if one door closes in your face, you go try another and try another until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts you in the right place. So don't sit idle and don't just wait for your dream job to come to you. Sometimes, like I said, sometimes you have to do something that you never thought you would do. Sometimes you have to get your hands dirty. Simple as that. So you work and then you do dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Allah will help you out. On that note, we have a verse from chapter At-Talaq, if I could remember, I think verse number 3. وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهِ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا وَيَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبُ وَمَنْ يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ إِنَّ اللَّهَ بَالِغُ أَمْرِهِ قَدْ جَعَلَ اللَّهُ لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدْرًا. Inshallah, we'll put this verse in the comments so people will read it. The hadith says if you read this the hadith says if you read this verse 3 times after each salah, and you keep doing it for at least a year or so, you will never be poor. Like, wow. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in a way, He will make you float, to say the least. You won't be under a lot of debt or in debt, and you will always find something that keeps you afloat. So after each salah wajibah, after each, for example, Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Asha, read this verse 3 times, or these 2 verses. وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will help you ease your debt and ease your risk. And there are plenty of ahadith in this regard. There are plenty of ayat to be recited and done. In the Islam For You website, there's plenty of articles in this regard. Someone can go and read. So, yeah. But mind you, dua and Quran by itself will never work. The way the sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ask me, but work, I'll give you the tawfiq, I will give you the blessings to find what you're after. But the effort is yours. So the Quran says, وَلَيْسَ لِلْإِنسَانِ إِلَّا مَا سَعَى. You only get what you go after, what you put effort in. So yeah, all of us, or most of us, sometimes we fall under the end stick of life and then we suffer. And Allah will open doors, but we have to move. We have to be active, pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We combine that amal with iman, and inshallah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will find a way.
Thank you very much. I think we should wrap up the final episode of the Finances in Islam for You podcast. This is I'm going to ask you a spontaneous question. We haven't talked about this before, but it just came to my mind, so I thought I should ask you,
sure,
as well as the dear viewers, to give us a list of topics that they would be interested in exploring for the next seasons of the podcast. If you can mention the 3 topics that you would want to talk about on these podcasts for the next seasons, give us a list so we can maybe have a survey with the viewers as well.
Look, it's really hard.
I know, that's why I
to
asked
come
you.
up with because sometimes I might like a specific topic that might not resonate with the viewers. So it's really, really hard. But based on what I'm seeing and based on the current state that the Muslims kind of going through, there's a lot of research regarding the end of days, Yawm al-Qiyamah, for example, or the end of times, or the appearance of Imam Mahdi because of the current political situation that's happening. So there's a lot of questions in this regard that people are asking. What are the signs of the emergence of the Mahdi? What are the signs of the end of days? Are we living in the end of times? Considering that we see this moral corruption happening, considering that we have this moral decay, this even religious decay that's happening, are we in the end of time? So a lot of people asking these questions, and sometimes, sadly, they might listen to their own people in this regard. So this is one of the topics that could be discussed. Other topic could be discussed, even, let's say, some Quranic concepts that people might misunderstand. For example, in terms of jihad, in terms of resistance, in terms of terrorism, in terms of stuff like that. We have these problems. We have a lot of problems with the spouses, for example, where we don't know how to deal with each other from an Islamic perspective as well, where each one does what he wants, or these days it's just Instagram, for example, whatever Instagram tells people, like, oh, look what he says, look what she says. So we have this kind of issues. So it could be family issues. But at the end of the day, ultimately, I think it's up to the viewers to decide what's good for them or what they want to hear about. Should we talk about end of time? Should we talk about family issues? Should we talk about, marriage issues?
Thank you.
It's open for
I just
everyone.
wanted to make have a list, so people can think about it, and then they can contribute to it as well. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Inshallah, with the second season of Islam for You podcast, we choose another topic and we'll explore it with you.
Pleasure.
And we'll try to just we'll really trying to have the right version of Islam presented to the people.
Inshallah.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Goodbye.